Jay Shrek, a spiritual solution to a world in crisis. Finney Strong podcast. Welcome to the world's largest small group. Everybody is welcome. Remember that. All inclusive, never exclusive. We're going to bring Mr. C.H. Smith in. Charlie Smith, what's up today? How are you doing?
Jay Shrek.
Yeah. What's going on today? How are you doing?
Of the pod today.
Getting my notes out.
Handy dandy
and
notes.
I'll be prepared. How's your world? Tell me about your world. What have you been doing?
Oh man, I have a lot of good stuff to talk about here because I was at the Cocodona 250 volunteering, so I have some really good analogies for the message today, which I'm really excited about. Hey, first off, like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your comments. We're going to talk about 3 points, but I know there's other things. Our topic this week is doing the work. And Jay Shrek, I got this topic because after our last episode, I was listening to that episode hiking, and I heard you say, do the work. And for some reason, it stuck in my head. And I was obsessed with it that day and worked on this podcast actually last week and finished it up. But I'm really excited about this topic of what we call doing the work.
I love doing the work. That's the spiritual maturity is doing the work. You know, there's one side of it's like this: God help me, right? And God will. But then God's going to say, you got to do the work. You know, faith without works is dead. You have to then go do the work. Once I enter, you can't just, it just isn't going to go there and stay there. You have to go be of service to others to keep that gift that you're going to receive.
Yeah, amen, brother. Let's jump right into this and go through these 3 topics that are going to be juicy. And we're going to run for 30 minutes, and 28 minutes in, we'll call the 2-minute warning and close this out. So our first concept, Jay Shrek, is out of 3 under doing the work is living out faith through actions. Okay, so I'm gonna tee up our talking points and we'll get into this dialogue. In a world filled with conflict, Christians are called to move beyond mere words or beliefs and actively demonstrate their faith through tangible actions. This means stepping into the messiness of human struggle, whether it's reconciling divided communities, feeding the hungry, or standing for justice, and showing Christ's love through deeds that bring healing and hope. Doing the work means being the hands and feet of Jesus in a broken world. What say you, Jay Shrek?
Well, you know, once you let God into your life, my job is to be of service to God, right? My life is to be of service. What's that mean? It means that I'm here to do his bidding. I'm here to do his work. And that means that I'm supposed to be of service. And if I do that, what I get in return is I get a life that's filled with purpose. And then all of a sudden now I have purpose. But, you know, I can't say I have faith and sit on the couch and do nothing. You know, I have to bring that faith out into the world. And I have to show what I really need to show is I need to show people that God works through me. Right. You need, well, why is that guy successful? When I say successful, that could be put smiling and being happy. Right. Well, why? Because I know I'm going to be taken care of. I know that even if the day gets difficult, life is difficult, that if I have God, then I'm going to be okay. So now I have purpose.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good. I feel like when I read this concept, I had to dig into it because the first and second concept, there's some overlapping, it feels like. And I feel like this is a stake in the ground. And you need to put a stake in the ground and have faith to propel yourself forward. So this is what I would call a personal commitment, because living out and doing the work, let's call it, I think of that Rush song, The Working Man or The Working Woman. I mean, men and women. They call me the working man. you know, da, da, da. But
It's a little
so
rush,
you
actually.
didn't say any,
We're dealing
you
with
didn't,
there.
I thought you would be there with me
I'm
on
all
that one.
aboard.
But it's like a stake in the ground, right? It's like doing the work, the working man, the working woman, right? You're going to work, you're doing it with intent, right? And there's a calling to doing that personally, to do the work. You've got to throw a stake in the ground, a flag in the ground, whatever it is, to say, this is who I'm going to be.
If I said to you today, me and you are going to go out and we're going to build a shed, right? We're going to build a shed in your backyard. And so let's say that this is a spiritual shed, right? What's the most important thing that you're going to do on a spiritual shed is that you're going to build a foundation. We're going to have something to put that on, because if we don't, it's going to rot. Animals are going to get in it, all the different things. If wind blows, there's nothing to hold it down. So my faith has to be anchored. My spiritual life has to be anchored by my faith. That is the foundation that I need to build a structure, my spiritual structure off of. And so faith is that stake in the ground. It's saying, you know what, this is my commitment. And because it's so strong, and my faith in God is so strong, I can build that spiritual structure now as high as I want to build it. And I can put as many stories on it, because if I build the foundation correctly, then I don't have to worry about what structure I put on it.
Yeah. Well, there's a famous verse. You just nailed it. It was, you need to build your house on rock and not on sand, because sand won't be there. Right. And I think that's part of the stake in the ground. You need to be committed to something. So for me, I was at this Cocodona 250. Shout out to Cocodona 250. I got a Pacers thing there, 250.
Explain to us people that don't have as athletic genes, what is the 250?
So it's a 250-mile race that the winner just finished in under 60 hours, beat the record from last year. And it goes from Black Canyon City, if you're familiar with that area, and then rolls up through Prescott, Mingus Mountain, into Jerome, into Sedona, into Flag. And it's 250 miles. And there's 4 different races at different distance. They have Sedona Canyons, Mingus Mountain, and then the Flagstaff, Tour de Flagstaff, which is 39 miles, but 250 miles. And what I get, and this is where I'm going with this, that race is going on right now, is up there volunteering at Mingus Mountain. And the people who do these races, and there's the elite athletes, but then there's, nobody ever talks about the mid-pack runners, the back of the pack runners, right? And the people that do set out to run or hike or crawl 250 miles, right? They're putting a stake in the ground today, right? As this is going on, saying in 2026, I'm going to move from the Sedona 125 and I'm going to do a 250 mile race in under 125 hours. And so to me, that's a stake in the ground. And then the work happens, right? In all building up to this, to whatever the races you're doing. But so no matter who you are, right, you putting the stake in the ground for something. But what I'm saying is, to do the work, there has to be a point. To do the race, there has to be a point where you put that stake in the ground, the flag in the ground, and says, I'm committed, we're moving forward. So with that, I'll close it out with this verse, which I know this is a verse that you've come to love. It's James 2:17, which is one of my favorite verses. It says, in the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So if you say you have faith, but you're not doing anything, James, Jesus' half brother, says it's dead.
You know, the only thing that I'll cap this section off for me is that it's that same thing, that if you decide to commit and put that stake in the ground, whether that be spiritual or that be physical or both, there's work that has to happen. You can wish all you want that God would come in your life and never ask him. And you can wish all you want that you can go do 250 miles or 100 miles or 20 miles. but you have to do the effort. You have to make that commitment and make that movement. You know, I think a lot of people think that the relationship with God just happens because you say, but you got to build that relationship just like you do any other relationship. And you have to put the work in just like you do to do those hikes. You can't just decide one day, I'm going to go hike the Grand Canyon. You can, but I don't think you're going to get out of it what you would like to get out of it. I don't think you'd like that experience. You know, you can say, I want a relationship with God, but show him, ask him, God, come into my life now, do the work. And that's so important to do the work.
Yes. Amen on that. So we'll close this first concept out, right? With
that's like Johnny Carson and the Great Kreskin. Is that what it was?
Through actions. And here we go. Jay Shrek.
Boom.
That concept's done.
You know, I wish I could find my pad that actually had those sound effects on it.
All right. So here we go. Concept number 2, loving and serving others. I hear this a lot. You hear it really broken down by love God, love people. So love God, and then through that, the outflowing of loving people. That's how you show Christ's love. So our talking points for that one is doing the work is rooted in Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself, especially in times of conflict. Jay Shrek, this isn't just about warm feelings, but sacrificial service, listening to those who disagree, helping the marginalized, and forgiving your enemies. By serving others selflessly, Christians offer a spiritual solution to a world in conflict, demonstrating the transformational power of God's love. What say you, Jay Shrek?
You know, the first thing I thought about when you said that was resentments and these feelings or forgiveness, right? Same thing in a sense to me is that I have an issue with somebody and I don't want to forgive them. And let's say they even wronged me. Let's say I was really innocent for once in my life, that's a rarity. So that would be a hard charge right there. But let's just say it happened. The problem with not forgiving is that you can't forgive yourself. So inevitably, it's going to bounce right back to you, and you're not going to be able to forgive yourself if you can't forgive others. You know, we're all human. Let it go. You know, let those feelings go. How can I be of service with God when I have this inner tension and I have, you know, a bad feeling of other people? And again, if I can forgive the people around me and people I don't even know that might cause me grief on the highway or wherever that might be, then I get to forgive myself. And that's the benefit is that, and if I forgive myself, I can then go out and do God's work. I can do his bidding.
Yes. Love that. I think this is the intentional part of this 3 concepts of doing the work. It's like a daily commitment. So I'm going to go back to this Cocodona 250 just because it's top of mind. By the way, I volunteered for like 10 hours and slept in my car afterwards. And I got to see a lot of people in agonizing pain because it was raining, it was muddy, it was 39 degrees when I went to sleep, which is not the typical race conditions for this race. So where I was up on top of Mingus Mountain, and it was really raining hard and it was cold there. And so I really got to see the agony of defeat and then the agony of perseverance. And around that individual, I got to see all the things that go on. So, you know, obviously in a big event, you have paid staff. So I'll hold them aside. But you have volunteers that are there making the event go on. And my wife encouraged me to volunteer. I've ran these races, but I've never volunteered at a race. So I got to see a different side of it. And I really enjoyed it because I'm about serving others. But outside of the runners, which may, you know, come off like they're doing all this work to achieve a goal, there is the crews and the volunteers, and they're all working around serving. And when I say the crew's like a pit crew. So if you have a 250-mile race, they're there could be family members, there could be people from a running club or whatever. And usually crews are about, there could be one person, two people. Some have crews of like 4 people. And when you come into a rest station, let's call it like every 17 miles or so, 20 miles, the crew comes in and they're there to support you. And they have a rhythm, change out the pack, new shoes, all the stuff, give encouragement, all that stuff. And for me, in this segment, I feel like that is a great visual of serving others, right? The nobody's ever going to know who showed up and volunteered. Nobody's ever going to know who showed up and was part of the crew. Some people may see a pacer. There's a pacer tag, but typically nobody's going to know your name either, because you're just signing into a logbook. There's somebody who's running whose name is on that tag. So this shout out is to serving others and not getting any recognition whatsoever. And this is strategic in having a serving heart. And when I think about all the things that went around one individual to run a race, right? You have friends, you have families, you have people that God's going to put in your way, and not put in your way, put in your way for you to serve. And it's not about you getting anything out of serving. It's about you serving others. And that's super important to understand.
Well, the first thing I thought was self-serving. That's the last thing you want to do is you don't, if I'm going to try to get some vicarious pleasure out of the situation, then probably I'm self-serving. Right. Mm-hmm. And that, it's a whole different world of humbleness when you're able to go and be of service and be of quiet service, right? Of being the silent server, being that person that just shows up and does that deed and goes on. There's something very, very humbling, which is the first breadcrumb into spirituality to me is humbleness, right? That's the first thing that opens that door, is to be able to be faithful and spiritual. There has to be some humility, and that is, and I look at humility simply as the word that the phrase I like is that to seek and do God's will. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm here to do. And it doesn't matter that people know who I am or what I did. I just need to know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm doing God's work, and I'm representing God in everything that I do. And it's cool to sometimes just be a part of the big machine, not just be another cog. I don't have to be the main gear. I don't have to be the main show. I don't have to win. There's only one person out of all the hundreds of people that run that race that's going to win. And nobody cares who came in second. But the reality of it is that to be a part of and not have to stand out is a whole nother world of humility, which feels good when I can do it. I mean, everybody likes to be the star every once in a while, but that's not a serving heart.
Yes. Unfortunately, I've been around serving a good bit of time, whether it's church, soup kitchen, all sorts of outreach, small group serving. Maybe you have opportunities in organizations like, small group serving, AA, Celebrate Recovery. There's so many different ways to serve, I guess, is where I'm going, and wherever God directs you. But, when I started serving in the church, it was about, just a lot of people don't serve because they feel like I'm praying or I'm thinking, I'm trying to figure out where my best fit is. And what I would say is show up and work in the parking lot first, just show up serving coffee, right? And then let God put you in the position you should be in, right? It's more about just showing up. I think it's Woody Allen has this famous saying, 80% of success is just showing up. Well, we know it's more than that, but when it comes to serving, it really is just showing up. Just show up, serve at the lowest level, and then God will figure out where you should be. I think what you were talking about is self-service if you go in, you say, hey, this is my skill set background, sometimes opportunities won't open up for you, or maybe you might show up and feel like something went wrong. Somebody treated you differently. They didn't treat you like a volunteer should be treated. In those, if you have that heart, you're not going to be serving long.
The first thing that I thought about was, in this world of service is that God doesn't need my money. God needs my work. God needs me. And I'm not going to say that there's not situations in service that you wouldn't need money ever. Don't get me wrong. It's the real world. But I've always lived under the thought process that God needs my work. He needs my service to be of action. And that action usually means to be able to have some interaction with people. And that's what's important. And it doesn't matter if it's at a race. It doesn't matter if it's in church. It doesn't matter if it's in Sam's parking lot. When I find an opportunity to be of service, it could be lifting those water out of the carts for some woman the older lady, older man that can't get it in. If I'm looking for service all day long, and where can I insert myself in service? Right, everywhere.
Yes.
And guess what? I don't do. I don't think of me. And my life goes well, and my day goes quick, and I walk lightly because I don't have a burden of all this other crap that's on me that people carry around, and I can too. I mean, it's not like I've made some turn there's no problems in life yet, but I do have that strong faith because I have a foundation, and I know that if I continue to be of service, then good things are going to come to me. God's going to give me the tools I need to be successful in life, and I know that.
Yeah, man, you just hit something. I was just thinking about serving in the small things. There could be somebody who drops something and you go down to pick it up. Let's say a woman with a young child, right? It's that heart piece that you're ready to jump into action, right? So we'll close this out with Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life for a ransom for many. And that, my friends, is closing out the second concept. Boom. All right. Jumping into our third and final concept, which I love this one. Matter of fact, when I did this, I was talking to somebody and had a conversation about this very topic. And I said, I was working on a podcast and I need to read this to you. So it's our concept number 3 is persevering through doing good. So our talking points here is, in a world of conflict, doing the work can be exhausting and discouraging. Have you ever felt exhausted and discouraged, J. Streck?
A lot. I felt a lot exhausted and discouraged.
Yeah. However, Christians are called to persevere, trusting their efforts will bear fruit in God's timing. I love that. We need to come back to that. By staying committed to faith-driven actions and service, believers can bring lasting change and hope to a broken world, with spiritual solutions to a world in desperate need. What say you, Jay Schreck?
The first thing I thought about was my dad was big on perseverance. He had a different perseverance, though. He had the just hammer it, right? Don't quit, don't die. I have a different perseverance. I had the same perseverance, but my perseverance is that I'm going to be okay because God's got me. Mm-hmm. So my baseline of my perseverance is not that I can just overcome it. Well, I can overcome it with God. And so there's a difference in those two. My dad really was more like, you just, if it kills you, you just lay on the trail and die. And I'm like, well, I don't think God wants me to lay on the trail and die. He didn't want me to quit. So will he give me the strength to get through whatever I need to get through? Absolutely. So I have God's perseverance and not my perseverance.
Oh, yeah. I love that. God gives you the perseverance, not just a personal piece. I call it in my family. I've always used this term, grind it out.
Grind it out.
Grind in. You know what I'm saying? You just grind in and things aren't working well. And, 80% of life, things are just grinding, right? And there's a lot more losses than wins in life, right? That's what builds our character. And yeah, there is to grind it outside, but I love the spiritual connection that you talked about. To persevere, right? It's more about the two things that I picked out in here is exhausting and discouraging, right? When you're serving, it can be exhausting, it can be discouraging. You want to quit, right? But in God's timing, not yours. This is where that selfish self-centeredness piece of serving comes in. The fruit will be bared in God's timing. So really, serving is not about you. It's perseverance, and let God do the work in his timing. And that comes back to concept number one, which takes a lot of faith.
Well, the first thing I thought about is the old saying that I've been told is that, I don't become a good sailor. I don't become a great sailor in the harbor, right? I mean, I'm only going to get to be a great sailor if I go to the open ocean. I deal with the so you wonder your trepidations of the world. And so when I'm in this, do I want to be a great sailor? I mean, do I really want to be a great sailor? And if I do, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be work. It's going to be hard. But at the end, is that what you want to be? Whatever that might be. And I got to do the work, and it's not going to be comfortable. I'm not going to be able to run through 8-foot swells in the harbor. They're not there. So I can contain my life and hide it in this little world over here, or I can take God with me and go out and realize that he's going to give me the power to go through that. And when I'm done, I'm going to have the ability to be able to say that I'm a sailor. And I say sailor now make that believer. So now I'm a believer. Why? Because I have went through the work and I have survived it. Sometimes I didn't drown. The boat didn't sink. Here I am. And why? Because God was with me.
Well, you've been serving organizations or a organization for, decades. What do you think is the most critical thing as we're talking about this persevering over a long period of time? Is it your belief in an organization? Like walk us through that.
I have a commitment because I've been given the gift, right? So I have a commitment, and the commitment is that if I want to be free, then I have to give back. And part of that freedom that between me and God was that if you relieve me of this, I will do your bidding. And what makes it doable is that I don't save anybody, and I don't have the capacity to save anybody, and they can't save me. That's between them and God. So what it means is I bring the message, but I'm not responsible for results. I don't get this person spiritual, and I don't take that spirituality away. That's not my business. Mine is to bring the spiritual toolbox and lay it at their feet and say, this is what happened to me. This is my experience, and this is what happened, and this is how I did it.
Yeah.
Whether they do it or not, that ain't my business. So I'm never burdened by successes or failures because they're not mine. When I'm of service, I go there to do God's work. It's not, the results are up to God and that individual, whoever that might be. And so that makes it easy because I know my purpose. My purpose is to serve. But my purpose is not to get look what he did because I talked to him or worked with him. That's not my business. That's between him and God. My deal is to be of service, is to give the gift back that was freely given to me and freely give it back to them. And that's the altruistic movement that saved my life.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So our third concept as we move into closing out in the 2-minute warning is persevering through doing good. For those of you who listen to us more in a podcast mode and not look at the stream, I've got a index card up here like Johnny Carson, and I'm throwing it back. But our verse here is Galatians 6:9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the appropriate time we will reap a harvest if we don't give up. What a great verse. And with that, boom, card goes backwards. Hey, in 2-minute word in closing out, here's my quick talking points. Hey, 3 points here. One is, I encourage you to put a stake in the ground if you don't have a stake in the ground, and stand for something when it comes to serving. 2, I just like I talked about, being part of a pit crew, don't look for anything, just serve, right? Don't look for recognition. Don't look for anything. It just needs, look at your heart, and your heart needs to have a serving heart. And then 3 is persevere, grind it out, whatever it is, connect with God, understand where you are in the process, and that's okay. So with that, I will hand it off to Jay Schreck to close us out. God bless you all. See you all at the Cocodona 250 next year.
I'm not running that, Charlie. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm not training it, and I'm not doing it.
I'm doing it. I'm not going to do 250, but I'm going to pick a race.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. God bless, and I'll see you. Another awesome podcast. I'm glad you guys joined us today at the world's largest small group. Everybody's welcome. Remember, regardless of what you've done, Jesus Christ, your Savior, will open his heart and bring you in. All you got to do is ask. It's that simple. Persevere. Have a great day today. It's been awesome, and we will catch you mañana. Adios, amigos.